don't know how many more like jargon words I can throw at you, but these are all the event words I know. I'm working in events since 2005. I've always been inspired by people coming together to share ideas. I'm Amanda Younger, and I'll be your host on Happy Hour, where I share a drink and a laugh with guests over stories and our hope for the future of the live event experience. Today, I am talking with Mary Jane Gibson, performer, writer, host of Weed and Grub, and former editor of High Times, where we met, and Cristina Buccola, she is our attorney. She's fantastic. So she's going to give you your legal and business consulting services over cannabis, media and entertainment, lifestyle and wellness industries. We'll go through it all. Special thanks to you, Laxamana Media. You create, we capture. Definitely want to check them out. They have been a tremendous help for me and Happy Hour, of course. And another thank you to Old York Farm producers of Cooper's Daughter, which I have been drinking, a family-operated distillery in the Hudson Valley that is woman-owned and has a cooperage on site. Be sure to continue the conversation with us online at eventspeak.com, subscribe on Apple and Google Podcasts, follow us on Spotify and iHeartRadio, and favorite us on Stitcher to get all the upcoming episodes and help others find our show. Review and give us a rating on YouTube. Love as much feedback as possible in our early stages, and promotional giveaways in the works, so check back soon. Together we can make the difference in live events. Hey guys, thanks for sitting in with me today. Today I used a smoke infuser on a Manhattan I made with Cooper's Daughter bourbon, finished in a black walnut syrup barrels. You can kind of see most of the, oh, there it goes. Something had to smoke today. But anyways, I wanted to make sure that being that I'm with you guys, I wanted you to tell everyone who you are, what you do, and what are you drinking for Happy Hour?
I am Mary Jane Gibson, ex-colleague of yours from High Times, now freelance cannabis culture writer for Rolling Stone and other outlets, and host of the Weed and Grub podcast with comedian Mike Glazer.
Which we love.
and cheers, and what am I drinking? And I'm having a beautiful French press sunrise coffee, very deep roast with some CBD 1-to-1 drops, because it's 2:00 in the afternoon here and I have to work the rest of the day.
Right.
while medicating lately and enjoying a happy hour with you.
Yes. Oh, thank you. I love our West Coast friends trying their best.
Yeah.
My name is Cristina Buccola, and I am an attorney and an advocate in the cannabis and hemp space. I have my own practice called Cristina Buccola Counsel. I do a lot of things, and among them, I'm going to be teaching law school come the fall, which is pretty exciting. Worked out a pretty interesting curriculum. And I'm really excited to bring this curriculum to a new group of people who haven't necessarily been exposed to cannabis law before.
That's great. I actually, I might as well just ask you, because I met these wonderful souls when I was hired at High Times. And of course, everyone was already there and established. But I feel like at least I came on board right when all the laws were changing and the legality of cannabis, at least domestically, was drastically changing. And you were, I feel like they were changing per state, per jurisdiction within the state on a monthly basis. And you were the one like going, okay, Colorado changed, you guys. Colorado changed. All right, hold on. Now it's this, and we're like, what are we selling? What are we putting? What and what's our program?
And there was never really a dull day. And a lot of what we worked on, Amanda, was how were we going to sell the cannabis cups to certain jurisdictions, right. And how were we going to ensure patient safety or attendee safety, depending on whether people were consuming or not, whether it was a medical state or not. Certainly one of the most interesting jobs I've had. And I miss you guys tremendously in that capacity. And it was really exciting to constantly see laws evolving and being able to respond to them in a meaningful way to bring programming there.
Yeah. And I think we even had, this was when I watched writers and editors like Mary Jane become event managers in the middle of the day almost. It was kind of like you guys would have to hold court in VIP, and then you have to leave to do like an interview with our headliner, and then return to check like gift bag inventory. And someone's dad would fly in and run the box office. So it was probably the scrappiest bunch of event professionals that I've ever met with, but it was probably events at its purest form. How was it like for you, just kind of like having to switch gears from journalist to event person, back to journalism, and then back to event person? I feel like,
Yeah, I think you're so right in saying that it's events in its purest form. I have a theater background, which is very DIY, scrappy, like build a set and then get on stage and then, go mend your costume and then like do the promotion afterwards. So I was always, I love wearing hats and being involved in every way because, that's how you get to sort of like decide what's going on, is to actually do everything. So I was so excited, when I joined High Times, they weren't doing cannabis cups across the country yet. Like when I started writing for them, it was 2007. So the event happened in Amsterdam. And then when they started doing cannabis cups stateside, to just go to an event where people were openly consuming cannabis together and celebrating the plant was the coolest thing, and that just infused every aspect of it. So whether or not you were exhausted and like not wanting to have to necessarily switch gears and go back and like from having interviewed Wyclef Jean or whoever, like it was always sort of informed and infused with the joy of weed. And I definitely learned that also smoking throughout the day with folks at those events was, like definitely up to my tolerance, but I had to learn how to really pace myself because they were long days. And it was great. I loved it.
Yeah, I think previously I talked about we had volunteers at High Times and we'd kind of lose them halfway through the day. And thankfully we had like their ID card, but then usually by the time we caught up with them, they were toasted. They were just done. Like, you're supposed to do tickets and wristbanding. What are you doing back here? They were done.
Yeah, well, and of course, so like hanging out with the High Times professionals, Danny Dango or Liz McDonough, who is an apples expert, like who have like, huge tolerances and vast ability to like smoke all day long. I remember there was a video guy who Elise had hired to record, video of the whole event. And we found him and he'd eaten a bag of edibles and he was filming her dogs. He was just sitting, getting B-roll of her dachshunds hanging out. And he was just, useless. I mean, it was crazy. So we definitely had to keep an eye on the people who were coming into the event without the knowledge of what that really was going to look like. If we just had to make sure that we let them know, of course, everyone is free to enjoy, then celebrate the plant. Just do it carefully. And if you're going to do it while you're on the job, make sure that you're capable of doing that. You wouldn't want your beer festival volunteers to be drinking beer all day. So it was the same thing. It was like, of course, enjoy it when you're done work, but in the meantime, and a lot of them were patients. So that's something that people fail to remember, is that there are a lot of people who do successfully medicate throughout the day and are incredibly productive.
Yes.
And it's a different bunch.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was for a good cause, and there were a lot of people that had a lot of great medical benefits from it. And because of that passion, because of how it helped them, you saw that passion of how they wanted to help others with it so much. So that was always great to see, that excitement of trying to do for others, with the plant that it had done for them. So, and probably kind of the same question kind of goes over to Cristina. When we were doing the World Cup, you also had to juggle, being an event person, taking care of like the VIP area and like go for Amanda. Amanda, we need water. we need more food. Where's the food? And then we would have to say, hey, I need you to take your event hat off and I need you to run into the box office. I think there might be a riot getting started and I need you to kind of de-escalate conflict. And you're like, okay, now I gotta be, now I'm your attorney. Okay, here we go.
I loved it though. I thought that made things much more interesting to see how quickly it almost became a personal challenge. How quickly can you pivot?
Yeah.
And the one thing I will say, I came from an extremely corporate background initially. I cut my teeth in mergers and acquisitions and private equity and securities law. And then, I had taken a stop as general counsel for an international tech company, which was still very corporate compared to High Times. And learning how to contract and reach agreements with parties that were accustomed to doing handshake deals and memorializing those agreements to paper while not completely freaking out the other party by saying, okay, now you're going to have to sign an agreement for a subject matter you're accustomed to just, shaking hands on. That was always an interesting challenge. And I learned how to under-lawyer in a way. And I know that sounds very strange, but okay, well, we can strip all this away. What are the most essential terms of the deal? And I think where that really came out was in the World Cannabis Cup in Jamaica in 2015, where I wrote a contract with Rastafarians and they signed it. And among the different, I know I've talked about this before, what you're alluding to with getting in the ticket office, which I believe was in a bus.
It was a bus. Right? Yes, it was a bus. A box office was in a bus. Yeah.
It was
parked in the driveway of the whole place. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it had wheels and it could move and
also it
was a rockin'.
I think that one of the terms that I agreed to loosely when you ahead of an event or in any kind of contract, you agree that you are going to resolve differences in a certain way, whether it's arbitration or you go to this court or you go to that court. Well, the Rastafarian group that we were dealing with, they just were like, we don't believe in court. We had this alternative dispute resolution mechanism called the reasoning session. And so I agreed to reasoning sessions in an agreement and found myself and others multiple times in reasoning sessions throughout the event where it was kind of like a real-time, hands-on resolution meeting. And that's not usually the way things go, but it was, again, challenging, exciting, and a way of practicing law I don't think I will ever have the opportunity to do again, frankly.
Yeah. It's amazing. And it was fun. It was,
it was so much fun.
It was so much fun. If it wasn't one thing, it was another. I think at one point, the entire merchandise tent had just packed up and left while we were doing awards. And it was like, hey, okay, I need, these people to go over to the award ceremony. We're going to, present. We're going to do this, that, and the other. And I went over and they had just shut down on their own. No one had told them to shut down. And they had not told anyone that they had shut down and had left. Just the whole thing buttoned up and they were done. And I was like, wow, okay, this is new. Okay.
Yeah, was it 420?
A whole tent by myself.
No.
Yeah.
I don't know. I remember the first event that I did. The first couple events that I did at High Times, I had to work like the check-in desk, and I insisted on having a wheelchair rental, and so I worked that too. And then after, I remember walking around. And I didn't really know MJ at Mary Jane at the time. And I just remember her in the VIP tent. And I was like, I want to be with Mary Jane. Like she's the shit. She's cool. And then I somehow finagled my way. Oh, am I not allowed to curse?
No, I said she floats in.
No, she was just amazing. And like the
curse all you
whole
want.
crowd was just into it. And I'm like, I'm like customer service and registering complaints. I want to break, but no, her work is really hard, but just a different type of experience. And I remember working with Mary Jane, and she never stopped. She was always on, and she has this incredible gift to make everyone feel welcome and important. Whereas there's a certain point in my day where I'm like, I will hit you. I'm not allowed to say that, am I?
It's kind of true. It's kind of true. At some point, you do have a face that says,
we're done here.
Go away.
Bye.
And Mary Jane kind of floats in. Hey, how's everyone doing?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Where are you going, magical creature? Follow the unicorn. She's flowing that way.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, I certainly didn't feel like that most of the time. I felt like a sweating mess, but really did enjoy, like, supervising a joint rolling contest is no hardship. So it was mostly a lot of fun with great colleagues. I mean, working with you guys was, the best part of it. Working with people that I loved and admired was, an amazing thing. It was a family. We were a really great team.
Yeah. And the both of you are actually on my short list of people from High Times with whom I'll drive. And I would always try to coordinate a flight with either one of you or Danny Danko. He's the other one, where I'm like cool with driving with him. One of you three, I was always like, where are they flying out of? Let me get situated with one of them, because I trust all of your driving, which is a huge thing.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, because that was the other thing is, the office was headquartered in New York, and all of us had to schedule together and carpool together from an airport in Detroit to drive up to Flint, and who's the driver, and we had to schedule all of that out. So, I mean, the event planning started, in the office of like, who wants to sit with who, and you're going to be with them because they're going to take you to the event site. And yeah.
I'm a safe driver. I learned the old 10 and 2 super safe driving, really like because of the nature of our work. I mean, more often than not, when you're working cannabis events, you are transporting some amount of cannabis on your person, and so it's, prudent to drive very well and safely, no matter what your state you're in. Every state has different laws. And, I drive in California every single day, open adult use laws there, and I drive just as safely as I would in any other state because, it's just smart.
Yeah. I mean, you should drive safely regardless.
Well, a certain colleague,
when I'm alone in my car, rubber to the ground.
But we had a certain colleague at High Times who I won't mention, but we all know who the crazy driver was, and nobody wanted to get in that car.
Oh my God, no. I did that once, and I prayed like I had never prayed before. And then I said, thank you, Lord, for letting me live. Never again.
Never again.
Never again.
Oh, man. Oh, good. Well, I know since High Times, Cristina, you've done plenty of speaking engagements on the legalization movement, and I've seen you in a bunch of different conferences kind of on the subject. So since COVID has come along, yay! How has it affected you? How have you adjusted? Have you been doing, more of these like digital interviews, or how's that been working out?
Well, the big thing that I had to cancel, and the same with I think both of you, was South by Southwest. Mm-hmm. And so that was a little bit of a disappointment, but there's always next year. I kind of had prior to that, I had kind of just made a decision with my practice that I wasn't going to really do conferences anymore unless there was a conscious decision around diversity. And there were also tickets made available for people at affordable prices. For example, I routinely get asked to speak at conferences that cost $800 a ticket. And, this internal policy of mine came out of something that happened over the fall, where I said to the guy, okay, well, do you have a scholarship program? Who are the other people? And it was the same faces in the room with the same opinions. And it was wildly expensive. I didn't see that there was any kind of new value add. And, he offered me a bunch of tickets to offer to people at 50% discount, which was still $400. So I've been a little bit intentional about what I do, because frankly, I think what I do is not that interesting, right? I talk about cannabis legalization, and I encourage people to think about cannabis legalization in certain ways, including the importance of community reinvestment, the importance of equity, and medical justice and business accessibility to individuals. But what I do professionally, like what gets me paid, I write contracts. It's not that exciting, right? I'm a transactional attorney. I help you raise capital. I help you form your business. I help you, bring in investors. We might talk a little IPO, all of these different things. We might talk about, intellectual property and how you protect yourself. And so to talk about those things, it wasn't necessarily very interesting to me to talk about those topics in forums where, I don't know, and where I wasn't getting anyone really interested in the reasons behind legalizing cannabis and all of the pitfalls that we face, particularly in New York, when we're trying to implement a state legalization program. But I was really lucky. I was super busy this winter, and I closed 6 deals in the first half of this year, which is a lot for me as a solo practitioner. Actually, it was in the first 5 months of the year. And there's some interesting things on the horizon, including law school. So I worked on that curriculum. I'm also a hermit, right? And so
this is also actually doing very well for me.
I'm a little bit of a hermit. I don't really leave the zip code all that often. And I'm set up to work at home. So we were really lucky. And I was very, very lucky that the transition was not so much of a transition. And it actually gave me a chance to catch my breath, and just focus on some of the work that's really not terribly interesting to talk about, but gets me paid.
I mean, it's good. I think everyone's really talked about the pause, especially in the event industry, is we've been forced to pause. And what do you do with that pause? Sometimes you just need the rest. And I talked to a couple of guests. They're constantly on the road. They're constantly touring. That's how they get paid, and that's how they do things. And it's always the next contract, the next gig, the next, packing the next bag and moving. And now they were forced to stop. Yes. And, they live together. And so they're forced to stop, live together, look at each other, look at what their life is and the hamster wheel that they're on, and kind of reflect and be like, how do we make this wheel work for us? Like, we're on it just to check by check to pay certain things, but where are we going? Like, where are we getting to? And they've been, thankful that they've had this pause to figure those things out, like their new normal, what should it be, and their new priorities, what those are, and being able to say, when things are reopening and we do go back to work, what am I now asking for? So I think, for you, what it was before COVID was, more accessibility in these speaking engagements. Because those are the people that you really want to talk to, because your knowledge benefits them far more than the same faces you've been seeing like time and time again. So that's pretty great to hear. And MJ, maybe I should call you Mary Jane. I know you've had tons of stuff going on acting, interviews, speaking engagements. The podcast is amazing. I'm a subscriber. You should be a subscriber. Everyone needs to follow Weed and Grub because it is fun. It is informative. It's engaging. Everyone needs to send pics of themselves with whisks. And yeah. Anyways, I feel like I've gotten to know you so much more just listening to you daily, almost, because I'm trying to catch up. I have all of these podcasts, but you guys are pumping them out, and I'm like, oh, I gotta catch up.
Yeah, we're coming up on 200 episodes. Yeah, thank you. Yes, Weed and Grub, we launched a couple of years ago. Mike and I, became great friends and decided we just wanted to talk about cannabis and comedy and food and all of the things that we love. And we've had, some incredible guests, and we have a great time talking to each other. And it's been a really great time. So thank you so much. Yes, follow at Weed and Grub on Instagram and send me hot whisk pics. It's my favorite thing to get. As far as our time in COVID, we were going to go Southwest. Weed and Grub got into South by Southwest. We were going to have a panel with Laganja Stranja, the fabulous Laganja Stranja, and Open Mike Eagle. And, when we got word that wasn't happening, Mike and I decided to take what we thought would be the couple of weeks of, lockdown to quarantine together and work on some writing projects. And, we're still there. We're still doing that. We're still sheltering in place and working on a bunch of stuff. And we've been putting out still 2 episodes a week. We pared it down to 1 for the time being for July to take a moment and sort of give ourselves a pause. But we have really, I think with the George Floyd protests and the change that is happening right now, it really gave us an opportunity to talk to some people who are trying to make change in the cannabis industry and address, the social equity programs and, talk about representation in cannabis and all that kind of stuff. And that was really cool to take, the month of June to really focus on guests who are doing that incredible work and talk to people like Root and Rebound, who are attorneys who are working with previously incarcerated people to actually get them jobs in the cannabis industry, and talk to people like Angela and Liz at Success Centers who are leading people through the steps of getting a social equity license into actually becoming a business owner, that kind of stuff. So that's been really neat and a huge learning opportunity. And also I've been writing Corona and cannabis, which has been really cool for Rolling Stone. I wrote about the black market in New York and how that's flourishing, obviously during COVID, and how the coronavirus is affecting the supply chain in cannabis and what that will mean ultimately for the industry, and how it was declared an essential, which was an amazing moment to realize that 38 states have declared cannabis essential in some form, and yet it's illegal at a federal level, and to really expose that hypocrisy. So it's been neat, a huge learning time, a huge, luckily a productive time. And man, am I eating well. I'm like pandemic plump. Whew.
Have you guys been making bread? Who's been making bread?
I have been making bread.
I knew it. Of course, I stay away from bread altogether, but I've created a new diet plan. It is...
I'm so proud of myself. I made hamburger buns from scratch last week.
Whoa.
I know. Very proud.
Other level. That's other level. That takes like potato starch and sesame seeds that haven't been roasted. I don't even know what that looks like.
It totally did. And I'm growing my own weed for the first time too. So that's wow. Weed and Grub component at home. It's like you just got to DIY all this, do it yourself, and don't leave the house. Just have it all where you need it.
Might as well.
I'm still living like it's phase 1. I don't care. Listen, this is phase 1 until vaccination is available.
It's true.
That's the way I'm going to roll. Like it's okay. I've actually come to really like the masking. We have bandanas. We have, a warehouse of about 50 rotating bandanas that we clean every once in a while to pull out
with a scarf.
Listen, this is a new way of life. I don't know that I will ever be able to go grocery shopping again without wearing gloves. That's also, that change might be here to stay. Another change that might be here to stay is once things come into the house, they get a wipe down with a Clorox wipe. I mean, I've done a little hazmat in our time, during our time. There's been some hazmat. There was a makeshift morgue not so far from us. So that was a nice reminder during COVID that this was very real, despite, you know, it's not being like the bubonic plague or the life of Brian, where, you know, bodies are just lining the streets. This is still a very, very real thing. And the way it impacted New Yorkers is one of the most alarming things to see. Inequities, we know they exist, but the way the mud dried over this showed cracks that are just not repairable under the system. So it's been interesting to see the shift from COVID into protests. And even though I'm still phase one, I try to get to at least one protest a week. My husband, who is 51 and has never gone to a protest in his life, goes as well. And it's also really important that we analyze everything through this lens and look at it. And I know that Mary Jane talks about this. I talk about this. We've all talked about it. And looking at the inequities that exist and the inconsistencies and how cannabis really is legal and accessible for some people and not for others. And one of the cooler, better, more interesting, more meaningful things that I participated in this winter during COVID was raising some money for COVID bailouts through Black Mama's Bailout and National Bailout. And that was done around Mother's Day, and that was super important because, you know, these are individuals who are incarcerated. It's not cannabis specific, but they're incarcerated because they can't make bail. And then the other thing that we're running into in not only bailouts, but in general, is accessibility, right? We can put all of these ideas into place and say, we need to be equitable, we need to do this, we need to be just. But the fact of the matter is there is such a disparity in groups of people and their accessibility to even things like the internet, right? Or cell phones or housing being such a big thing. If you don't have housing, like it really does all fall apart. I'm a part of National Expungement Week. I serve as a strategic legal advisor, and it's a year-round initiative to provide record relief, expungement relief, wraparound services like housing, healthcare, employment. There is one specific week in September where a variety of cities all get online to, when I say online, it hasn't been the internet. We all agree on programming. The programming this year is going to look really different. And, you know, working out those kinks particularly when some of the communities you're trying to serve and some of the groups of people you're trying to serve, you already know that they don't have accessibility as far as technology is concerned. So that puts another wrinkle, a fly in the ointment. And I think that that's going to be one of the biggest challenges to really creating some kind of equality in cannabis and beyond, is making sure that everyone has the technical ability and know-how to be connected to other people.
Yeah. No, and I know that, and I'll find the article that I read and I will post it so that people can actually check it out. But it was talking about how internet providers, especially in rural areas, but then also in Black and brown community areas, so like super urban and super rural, there is one provider maybe, but they definitely have a monopoly, and if you can't pay the price, you can't play, basically. And it's these two centers that if you're too far out or you're too far in, you've only got one place to go, and they kind of rule it. And
please send that to me. That's really interesting.
absolutely. And it was just kind of like everybody else, in the middle ground, you have options.
Right.
You might actually have another provider, and it's more competitive. And so what do we do as a country, to ensure that people have are provided something that is accessible, or at least something competitive pricing to kind of bring this monopolized price down, so that people can actually get on the internet and get information, and not have to run to their local libraries, which have become community centers. And they really are community centers, because they have Wi-Fi and they have internet and they have classes and they have storytelling time. But it's not just a place to get books. It's a place for people that are underserved, can go and get served, with information. And, bless your libraries. Go check them out. But and I'll send you that article. And and Mary Jane, you're over on the West Coast.
Yep. I am.
They say West Coast is the best coast, but I'm on the East Coast, so I'm going to say me.
I was an East Coast beast for a very long time. That is my home. That is where I grew up, and I miss it all the time. But I do love the West Coast, and I love what it's affording me right now as far as lifestyle and access to cannabis and the culture and all that kind of stuff goes. And just it's great.
Well. Yeah. So how are you doing? And in COVID, of course, you've become a little bit more creative. But what are your expectations, and what are you preparing for? In your area?
Yeah, I mean, the point you guys are making about access to internet being the way of the future, it really is, it's a utility. It's like hot water. Everyone needs access to the internet right now. And so I honestly am preparing for this being the long haul as far as reopening goes. Like you, Christina, I'm gonna keep in my very safe, sheltered life right now, and just continue to write and podcast and put material out that way, and look forward to live events again someday. But one of the things that happened actually during the pandemic and then the George Floyd protests was that organized criminals used that as cover to loot cannabis businesses across the country. And it was really horrible because a lot of these businesses were, small business, like one owner, a lot of minority owned businesses. There was a business owner in Oakland named Ron Leggett who was just starting up his business, and the smash and grab took everything he had. And we actually interviewed him, and there's a link to his GoFundMe to help him rebuild on the Weed and Grub site if you want to check that out. But that was one of the really sort of horrible stories to come out of what was happening, because people were pointing at the rioting and looting and saying that it was, these protesters, and it wasn't. It was actually organized criminals using the protests as cover to target these businesses and in a lot of cases take them out. I mean, I think there are a lot of businesses that won't be able to rebuild. So we were really trying to shine a light on that as well. I hope that those businesses have access to investors to be able to rebuild. But, these under federal law, they don't have access to Small Business Administration loans, and they don't have access to federal funding to help them rebuild. And in a lot of cases, hi, Katie. In a lot of cases, they don't have access to insurance even, because banks won't work with them. So that's another, reasons to push for federal legalization. It truly will give all of these businesses the right to operate as a sector of the market, an essential sector of the market, a multi-billion-dollar essential sector of the market, just like all of the other sectors have, a fair shake. So I don't know, I'm sort of preparing for, I think like a lot of us, we're preparing for, I'm girding my loins a little bit to keep protesting when I can show up in person, and to keep writing about it and to keep talking about it on the podcast until things change. And I'm excited about creative projects that are coming out of this time and hearing new voices and supporting those voices as they're telling their stories. And I don't know, like it's terrifying, but I think, you know, one of my friends who I spoke to, who's in New York, actually, a dear friend of mine, you know, a restaurant worker who he lived as a gay man through the AIDS crisis in New York and 9/11 and everything. And I talked to him and I was like, and now your whole world is changing again. And he said, there's no going back. It's kind of a great time because there's no going back. And he wasn't anything but sort of optimistic. And it gave me a good sort of shake, because I've been feeling pretty blue. And I'm pretty worried and pretty upset and pretty stressed out. And I was like, you know, there's absolutely the opportunity to feel like, you know, let go of the terror and embrace the anger and move forward with that, with a lot of weed to take the edge off.
It's medicine.
And I know the generation right now that is in college and high school and missing graduation, they've been fighting against gun control. They've been fighting against the climate. They've been fighting against multiple things. And now it just keeps on going. And I know that, what is it? As it Generation Z? I don't know, but they're going to get a new name because they've been fighting tooth and nail, I think, for a few years now.
I do need to just say something about that generation. I do go to marches pretty regularly and vigils and whatnot. I am floored, absolutely floored by the level of participation, by the level of preparedness, by the level of and as event planners or people who are in the event world, right? This is actually, because I don't think that there's necessarily any kind of centralized place where people say, okay, this is what we need. People just show up in groups to support, whether it's with voices or signs or PPE or hand sanitizer or snap. I am floored. And we've been having, you know, Occupy City Hall, and that's been going on for, I don't even know what, 10, 12, 2 weeks. It's wild. Also because of incredible organizers and their support. And it has been, I think I'm Generation X, so I'm several generations removed from them. And you know, I can be very grumpy and salty, but I am routinely impressed, just impressed, floored, the dedication, the attention to detail, and yet not being so stuck into things have to be done exactly in this manner. So I think that like the attention with the flexibility and the passion, maybe they're the generation to really lead us into solutions.
Yeah. No, and I mean, I think any public gathering, movement, a protest, that is an event. You experience an event together. Especially right now with the current movements that are going on and the sit-ins and everything. It is, you know, it's a group of people. So you're no longer just like one person going like, where's the fire? I'll take it out. It's definitely a large group of people walking in with that organization and that planning and going like, that's going out the window. We're having an experience. Where's the fire? We'll take it out. And I think that's this beautiful group mentality that is organically happening, and it can't get any more grassroots than that. I don't know how many more like jargon words I can throw at you, but these are all the event words I know. Hashtag grassroots, hashtag organic, hashtag, yeah, I know. Well, I'm super glad that I've experienced what I have with you, two wonderful souls. I love everything that you are doing and what you, I love your brains and I love your hearts more than anything, which is why I wanted to have happy hour with you. So I want you to go ahead and tell everyone, I want you to please promote yourself and tell everyone where to go to find out more. Cristina, do you want to start? How can people find you?
Pardon?
How can people find you?
They, in the zip code 10014, I'm always kind of meandering about.
They can't find me. They won't find me ever.
They'll just spot me. No, I have a website. It's CB, like catbird, at cbcounsel, COUNSEL.com. That's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. I'm also on Instagram, but I never post. I post like once every 7 months. And that's at CB Counsel. And
your dog has a better Instagram.
Oh, right. Well, that's because I'm not responsible for it. My dog, let's give Chica a shout out. I have a very cute dog. I don't know where she is. She's a daddy's girl, so she's probably with my husband. He runs the account. It's very artistic. He posts regularly, although sometimes I take the photo and send it to him. And that's @_NY Chica, CHICA. And follow that account because he'll be super psyched, and so will she, I'm sure.
Yeah, oh, of course. Mary Jane, I have a question before you plug anything else, because I have a question about you. Are you reading anything? Are you acting again? Are you screenwriting? What are you doing? Because I feel like theatrically you're just like cultivating something, and I want to hear about it.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for setting me up to tell everybody about all my new projects. I actually am. Mike and I are co-creating some really cool stuff. I'm really excited about it. We just finished a pilot for a show, and I will definitely tell you guys much more about it when I can. It's
yes, when you're ready,
super
of course.
Exciting. Yes, thank you. And then, yeah, as far as getting back to performing, that's, now is a time to figure out what that's going to look like for the entire world. The whole entertainment industry is totally shut down, but we have a neat opportunity to, that people are always going to need to hear stories and see stories and figure out ways to tell them in this new era of, not gathering for live events. So what does that look like? I think theater on Zoom should be illegal. Nobody should do that. Nobody ever wants to see you do a monologue on Zoom. But there are other ways to make things, I think people are going to start filming things separately and editing them together. Mike and I, because we are quarantining together, are making like cool little short videos. Mike actually got a video on Comedy Central during the pandemic, which I thought was a pretty cool achievement. So yeah, I am making things and writing things and looking forward to being, responsible for content that lands on camera, whether or not I'm in front of the camera. But yeah, thank you.
Nice.
Very excited about all that.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, because I always feel that like at your core, you are always a performer.
Yes, thank you. I definitely feel totally myself when I'm performing. That's my slipstream. That's when I'm right in everything is when I'm performing.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So is there anything else that you would like to promote?
Yes. The podcast at Weed and Grub, we've got a great slate of guests coming up, some pretty high profile names that I'm really excited to chat with. And then on Instagram, I'm at @thisismaryjane_. The underscore is a nightmare, but that's what it is. And having a great time, making fun, silly videos with Mike and all that kind of stuff. And you can also follow him at Glazer Boo-hoo-hoo if you want to, brighten your day. So that's kind of what's going on in my world.
Nice. That's great. And of course, we'll get all of those graphically thrown in so it's easier for everyone to follow. And then, of course, we'll put it in the description for everyone that's listening to us on all of your favorite podcasts. So I wanted to thank you guys again for joining me today. And together, we can make the difference in live events.
Thank you, Amanda.
Fantastic. Thank you. It's so good to see you guys.
Thanks.